Modesto, California, 2002. Laci Peterson, 8 months pregnant, age 27, went missing on Christmas Eve. Her husband Scott, age 30, reported to police that the last time he saw his wife was around 9:30 that morning before he left her to go to his workplace warehouse, then out to try out his new boat at the Berkeley Marina, 90 miles away. Here's a quote from one of the detectives on the case. Quote, "I suspected Scott when I first met him. Didn't mean he did it, but I was a little bit thrown off by his calm, cool demeanor and his lack of questioning. He didn't say, 'Will you call me back? Can I have one of your cards? What are you guys doing now?' Scott acted polite and arrogant. He didn't appear to be crushed about his wife being missing." End quote. The Actors Room is going to highlight a documentary. It was put up by Netflix last year called American Murder, Laci Peterson. This case and story has been done many times. And like I said, it was 2002 when this happened. So a lot of you out there are very aware of this situation. I'm going to give my take on the doc, and then I'm going to also give my opinion on Laci, Scott, the detectives, families, and everything else surrounding this story. So I hope you enjoy it. Sit back, relax, grab that beverage of choice. Enjoy it. And I also hope that you enjoy this episode of The Actors Room highlighting a documentary. Here we go. Scott Peterson is one shady man, husband, and would-be father. There are a plethora of questions surrounding this guy. And I'm going to try to do the best I can in this show to make sense of Scott Peterson, if that's possible. And I want to go ahead right off the bat and state on the show that I'm not a big fan of Scott Peterson. No. It goes further than that. I severely dislike him. I don't want to use the word hate. I just severely dislike the word hate. I don't want to hate anyone, but I can severely dislike someone. And if I was to severely dislike anyone, it would be Scott Peterson. So I want to go ahead and make a few points before I get to my notes on the doc. Scott Peterson left his 8-month pregnant wife, who wasn't feeling well, by the way. Dizzy, just swollen. She was pregnant, very pregnant. The child coming any day now. He left her alone on Christmas Eve, to go either golfing or fishing. He told everyone, family and friends, that he was going to go golfing that morning, but decided against it at the last minute because it was too cold. Too cold to go golf. So his decision was to go fishing on a boat. Scott, that makes no sense to me. I've done both in cold weather. I've golfed in cold weather, and I've fished in cold weather. And I gotta say, if I were to pick one or the other, I would definitely, without a doubt in my mind, pick golfing in cold over going on a boat with the wind. And those of you who have gone boating, fishing, being on the water and being on the boat, you get a lot of wind. And if it's cold and windy, it hurts. I'd rather be golfing. So right from the start, you got to be at least a little suspicious of Scott and his decision making, even if he had nothing to do with her disappearance. Okay, moving on. Nonetheless, he states, this is Scott, he states that his wife was planning to mop the kitchen, bake for the holiday, and then walk the dog while he golfed or fished. What a nice guy. He was also supposed to pick up a Christmas basket for the family on his way home from his little trip. But he didn't have time. He actually would end up leaving a message for his pregnant wife to do that chore as well. That's not all. At that time, the relationship between Laci and Scott was on shaky ground. Even though she was awaiting her baby son, friends say she looked depressed recently, not her chipper self. The reality was Scott was cheating on her, and I believe Laci was onto him. Scott Peterson, when it comes right down to it, didn't want a baby. He made it very clear that he didn't want kids. He told Laci that from the beginning. Told family members too. And when Laci and Scott decided to get pregnant, I wonder how that happened. Did she eventually break him down? Was he tired of hearing about it? Fine, let's have a baby. So when they decided to do that and she got pregnant, Scott was up and down during the pregnancy. Sometimes seemed excited, but mostly not. He never was really excited to feel the baby move. And it made it clear that he never wanted kids at the start. That is a recipe for disaster. Here is some background information on Laci. The doc did a nice job in showing how wonderful of a person she was. And from my feel on Laci, I get that too. Get a really nice, chipper, bright vibe from Laci Peterson. Her maiden name was Rosha. And they show old photos and videos of her dancing with her friends and so on. Laci, Scott, and I are around the same age, so we grew up in that same time period. And seeing old photos and videos of her dancing reminds me of my childhood, having fun with my friends, goofing off, and made me smile. So whenever I saw footage of Laci when she was younger or recent footage before she passed, I get a good feeling. I like her a lot. And I think that she was a very good person. Salt of the earth. All she wanted was to fall in love, have a career, get married, and have kids with a devoted husband. And she didn't get that. Unfortunately, she picked the wrong guy. Scott Peterson was definitely not the guy for her. Laci was the youngest of 3 kids, and her parents divorced when she was very young. Her mother, Sharon, would raise her and the kids with her longtime boyfriend and partner named Ron. And Ron would sort of be the stepfather. Not sort of, sorry. He would be the stepfather of Laci growing up. He pretty much raised her with the mom, Sharon. Laci was a cheerleader, went to college to study ornamental horticulture, and seemed she ultimately wanted to just meet the right guy. Sometimes it doesn't happen. And Yeah, that's what happened with Laci. Unfortunately, that's the case. Instead of meeting the ultimate guy, she meets this guy named Scott Peterson. And I say his name, and actually, I get upset. Deep down upset. Like, really, the anger, like, there's, I do a lot of reading up and watching docs on these pieces of shit husbands. And I'm a husband and father. And I take that responsibility and an honor. It's a great honor to be a father and a husband. I take it very seriously. It's the number one priority in my life. And it should be. When you decide to be a husband and or a father, you're taking on a great responsibility. Okay. Scott was never up to the task. So that's why I get upset. I get upset on my show, folks. I've been doing this show for about 9 years. I can't believe it. I do mostly actors, actresses, and film. I do docs every now and then. It's entertainment based. And my show has evolved, gotten different. I'm doing it a little better, I hope. And what I've noticed is that I want my emotions and my opinions to really come through on my show. I think that's an aspect of a lot of shows you don't see. Most shows, you get a pretty plain Jane story and information, and that's it. You don't get much else, which is fine if that's what you're looking for. If you want something different, I hope you tune in to my show, and you'll get that. You're going to get honest opinions from me. I don't sugarcoat anything on my show. I'll swear, goddammit, and so on. So, just want to explain myself before I go any further in diving into this story, like this story. You might feel my anger, my disapproval of this story. Okay, especially Mr. Peterson. We're going to lightly brush on his past. Before we get into my notes on the doc, want to set things up. Scott Peterson. He was deemed the golden child. So, he's appreciated, put on a pedestal. Could do no wrong, these golden child people. His parents, Lee and Jackie, had 6 kids from previous relationships. Scott was their only child together. So I think that means a lot. He was special. Scott was a great golfer. At the age of 14, he was already beating his father at the game, which is very impressive. I'm a sports guy. I love sports. I'm not that good at golf. I don't do it often, so I'm impressed with athletes. I'm impressed with good golfers. Scott, he could play the game. Teammates with Phil Mickelson in high school. Great. That's pretty cool. I guess Phil Mickelson was a senior when Scott Peterson was a sophomore. They were on the same golfing team. Scott would eventually go to the same college that Phil Mickelson went to be on the golf team. Scott struggled with the competition at college, wasn't up to the task. Scott was good at golf, but not great. Scott would eventually get kicked off the golf team for misbehaving. Bad behavior. I looked into this. What did you do, Scott? Scotty boy, what'd you do? Scott was salty that he wasn't being appreciated the way he thought he should be appreciated on the golf team. He wasn't one of the best golfers on the team. It happens, Scott. So he was getting, well, let's just say bothered by that. One of his teammates, he took out, got drunk with the teammate, and sort of played with his chances of making the team, from what I get. Well, the father of this kid that Scott took out found out that Scott did this, took his son out for a few beers, got him, I think he got him wasted. So the next morning, this kid wakes up hungover and stuff and may not have performed like he should have to make the team. Scott was trying to, let's just say, tamper with this kid's chances of making the team. I think Scott's a sore loser, plain and simple. When it got back to the golf coach, Scott was kicked off the team. Poor Scott. He just wanted to have a few drinks. So a little background information on the awesome, just great guy, Scotty Peterson. But before we end with the background on Scott, I do want to mention I'm being a little too hard on Scott. Am I? I am. I guess some teachers of Scott in college said they actually enjoyed Scott as one of their students. One of the teachers actually said this: I wish I had a classroom of Scotts. That's a true story. I don't know if I believe it, but that's what one of the teachers said. How did Laci meet Scott? They went to the same college. It's called Cal Poly. They met at a restaurant that Scott worked at as a waiter. She thought Scott was handsome, and Scott was handsome. He was. Laci, also very attractive, very cute. I'm going to be honest, they were a cute couple. It looked like they were made for each other. Storybook couple, relationship. Laci thought Scott was handsome. Went back to the restaurant a few times to grab his attention. And it worked. They started dating. It was working. A lot of Laci's friends say that Scott love-bombed her. I wasn't familiar with this whole love-bombing thing. I guess it means that he showered her with much affection, almost too much affection, always giving her flowers, and so on and so on. I guess that's love-bombing, where you just overpower them with both attention, gifts, and all of that stuff. I think a lot of women love that. But if you're doing it too much, I think it could be overdone a bit. You got to maybe do that for a little while off the start, but back off. Just, give some space every now and then. I don't think a woman or man wants to feel too much pressure, especially in the beginning of a relationship. You don't want to suffocate anyone. But that's what Scott did. He love-bombed. They married in 1997. Scott got a job as a manager for a fertilizing company. He ran a business that wasn't profitable. He misused funds, shady business practices. He actually used company money at one point to pay for personal speeding tickets. And from what I gather, he was in charge of a warehouse that had all of the materials and things that he was selling. It was like his little business for this fertilizer company, and hired a salesman to help him with the business. And I think his name was Olson. His last name was Olson. And I wish that he would have spoken up a little bit more about Scott and how shady he was, because I'm sure the employee working with Scott knew how shady he really was. And I'm guessing, I don't think this employee, this Mr. Olson guy, likes Scott. I think he knew how shady he was, but I could be wrong. You don't hear much about this employee that Scott had. I'm sure he has stories. But I wanted to make that point about Scott and his business. He struggled, he wasn't a good businessman, and he was misusing funds. He's already showing signs of a dishonest human being. So here we go. We're going to give notes on the documentary called American Murder, Laci Peterson. And the last time I did a doc, I think, from Netflix, was American Murder, the Chris Watts and Shanann Watts story. I did that about 5 years ago. It was right around COVID, I think. I did that show. And that was like a 3-parter. We're not going to do that this time. This will be a 1-parter about Laci and Scott Peterson. And I have notes about the doc. Laci goes missing, and it was her stepfather that called it in to the police. Why didn't Scott do that? That's his job. You're the husband. I'm the one making the call. I'd be freaking out, by the way. But I would, for sure, be the one to call 911, police, whoever. I'm making that call. Me. Not anybody else. And that would really just send out alarm bells for me. That he didn't make that call. It was the stepfather that did. Scott buys a fishing license. Okay. 3 days before her disappearance. And I guess a silver lure that he was going to use was still in the package. Never used it. The doc shows that he did an interview with the police. The interview started at midnight on Christmas Eve. It lasted until 1:30, so about an hour and a half. Watch this interview. And if you've seen the doc, you've seen the interview, it's in there. You can go on YouTube, watch the interview. He's way too calm. Way too collected. He's just nonchalantly looking at his phone. He seems so uninterested. Is this a guy? You're watching this guy. Does it seem like he gives a shit? He doesn't give a fucking shit that his wife and unborn son, by the way, okay, they're gone. And he's sitting back. He's casually got his hands in his pocket. Yeah, I went golfing. No, that's right. I didn't go golfing. I went boating. On Christmas Eve, yeah. I went boating. Didn't catch anything. I guess he was asked by the cops what he was fishing for. He had no answer. Usually you would know what you're fishing for. Didn't have an answer. And actually gave him an answer like a half hour later. He thought of something. This guy's so shady from the start. He tells police he woke up at 8 o'clock in the morning. Laci was up earlier, and when he came to the breakfast table, they ate and watched Martha Stewart. He mentions meringue. Martha Stewart was talking about meringue on her show. This is supposed to mean something. He got lucky here. I want to note this. Laci Peterson watched Martha Stewart often. So it was on. Martha Stewart mentioned meringue in her show the day previous to Christmas Eve. It was mentioned on that day that Scott says that he heard it one time, briefly, and not even by Martha. Meringue came up, but it was the day before, actually, that meringue was brought up several times. He was referring to the day before. He just got lucky. Martha, it came up on her show. But it was mentioned at 9:45. And Scott said he was out of the house by 9:30. So that doesn't make sense, Jeff. Sounds like this guy's making shit up. He is making shit up. And he's going to be caught in countless lies. And it's incredible to me. And one of the reasons why I'm doing this show is because there are people out there. There are still people out there that think he's innocent or have this doubt in their mind, this little doubt that there's a chance he was railroaded. There wasn't enough evidence. All this circumstantial evidence. It all adds up. It all adds up. He is guilty as you can be. Ever. In my opinion, it doesn't get... Okay, so you don't have like this blown away DNA that people just expect. Like, if you don't have DNA, then there's doubt. No, we can make I'm using this word today. Plethora of evidence against Scott. It just keeps coming and coming. He was supposed to leave the house by 9:30. That's what he says. But the meringue was mentioned at 9:45. So he's already, not good. This just doesn't look good for him. Golfing and fishing. 2 gold. I already put that already. I already got that. I have it twice. It's okay. My notes sometimes, I want to note again that leaving his pregnant wife, tired and swollen and whatnot, for all day on Christmas Eve. What kind of guy is this? He actually tells some neighbors that he was golfing that day. He can't keep his story straight. When Laci went missing, he went from house to house asking neighbors if she was seen. And he tells his neighbors he was golfing that day. He even told Laci's stepfather that he was golfing that day. This is afterwards. He went boating that day. He's telling the cops he went boating, and he's telling other people he went golfing. So which one is it, Scott? He went boating. Period. He can't keep his story straight. Nobody knew that Scott had a boat. It's amazing to me as I'm going through this show. If I'm the parents of both sides, of Scott and Laci, and his wife is missing, and they're asking questions. Where were you, Scott? Oh, I was fishing. With who? Oh, by myself. By yourself? Why? I don't know, I wanted to try out my new boat. Boat? You don't have a boat? Yeah, I bought a boat. You did? When? Not that long ago. Okay. What? You didn't tell anybody you had a boat? That's weird. Both sides of the family should be going, did anybody know that Scott bought a boat? He doesn't have a boat. Why would he buy a boat? Everybody should be, what's that? Is it because they were so overwhelmed that Laci was missing and they were concentrating on that it was sort of overlooked that Scott out of nowhere bought a boat, told no one, and went fishing on Christmas Eve, leaving Laci alone all day? He didn't go golfing. He didn't go to the country club and all that stuff with a bunch of other people and things that you can explain and go, oh, Scott was at the club golfing that day. People saw him and they knew where he was, and he came home and Laci was gone. Wow. Okay, Scott, let's go look for her. No, that didn't happen. When they asked him where he was fishing on a boat that nobody knew about. I mean, everyone should be suspicious immediately. But it doesn't happen. Both families, both families supported Scott. That's how snowed he had everyone? Was he that good of hiding his other self? Because there were 2 Scotts. There was devoted Scott and piece of shit cheating Scott. He just couldn't help himself. All right, back to the boat. He went online looking for boats the day he told Amber Fry. And you're thinking, who's Amber Fry? That was his mistress. Amber Fry believed that Scott was single. He told her so. This isn't the other woman thing, okay? She thought he was single, available. Amber Fry was told by Scott that he was indeed married, or was married, and his wife was dead, gone. And this would be the first holiday without her. This is before Laci went missing, and the very day he goes online looking for boats. Folks, this is way too much of a coincidence. How anyone can find him innocent. And we just started. This is just the beginning stuff. How anyone can find him innocent makes no sense to me. The day he tells his mistress that he was married, His wife is gone, and this will be his first holiday without her. He goes looking online for boats. They also found in his computer that he looked up the tide activity at the marina. He was also way too calm around everyone while people are frantically looking for Laci. Scott is just sort of do. Hope you find her. And he always referred to Laci in the past tense. So, cops are very suspicious of Scott, and they should be. They ask about the warehouse. Can we check it out? He says fine. Now, this part's a little confusing. Scott says that there wasn't electricity in the warehouse, or parts of it. But then he claims that on that day, on Christmas Eve, when he left Laci, he went to the warehouse, checked a fax and emails. So, was there electricity there or not? But when they went to look at the warehouse, the cops, I guess they didn't have electricity? But it was found out later by the police. They did some investigating on this. There were no power outages at all. So he's lying. Why? If you're innocent and have nothing to hide, there's no reason to lie. But Scott continues to lie and get things mixed up. And I mean, if my wife was missing and I'm a mess, I guess there may be a few things I stumble on or I forget and things like that. Stupid things. But not important things or instances that you're misleading police or family members, things like that. Your main focus, okay, should be finding your wife and doing everything in your power to make sure that happens. Talking to anyone and everyone, including the press, which is something else that Scott didn't want to do. There was a media explosion around this story. This happens sometimes. It doesn't hurt that the couple, Laci and Scott, were attractive. And the fact that she was pregnant, 8 months pregnant. And sometimes these stories just catch on. This one did. It was a big deal. It was said by friends and family that during the search, Scott would be joking around. Funny guy. This is a funny situation, joking around during your wife being missing. She wasn't found dead yet. But, yeah, I mean, joking around, really? What jokes were you telling, Scott? Were they knock-knock jokes or just you being all witty and you're just unbelievably awesome? That you could joke around while your wife might be in a ditch somewhere or heaven forbid someone took her and she's being held against her will. That you find the time and the effort to make jokes. In the doc, which I found extremely interesting, is that Laci's mother, Sharon, was very aware that Scott didn't want kids. And when she found out that they decided to have kids and Laci was pregnant, she was worried. And Laci's brother, Brent, would also have conversations with Scott on this matter about the pregnancy. And he noticed how disinterested Scott was and made it pretty clear that he was hoping that they would never conceive. The documentary notes that Scott made several anchors for the boat at the warehouse. And I looked at the case documents, all the documents that were presented during the trial. And they have pictures, a lot of pictures that were shown in the trial of the warehouse and where he made the anchors. Scott claims he made one anchor, and then with the rest of the concrete, the mixture, he poured in his driveway. But in the court documents, you could see pictures of the warehouse where he made the anchors, and he made several. You could see the circles in the pictures of several anchors. There you go. That almost clinched it for me, like 110% when I saw that picture. He made a bunch of anchors And from what I understand, he put an anchor on each of Laci's limbs. This is a fucking piece of shit. The documentary is kind of all over the place, which I kind of like. They kind of go back and forth in time. So the next thing the documentary brings up is his message to Laci coming back to the house after his fishing trip. This is supposed to be his alibi, or part of it. Kind of showing where he is, and he's concerned, and she should be at the house. That he won't be able to pick up the gift basket. His one chore for the day. Couldn't do it. The wife is mopping the floors. 8 months pregnant, by the way. Sick. Not feeling well. Mopping floors. Making bacon in the house for the holidays. Going shopping. Walking the dog. And he has one thing to do. One thing. Picking up a gift basket, which he said he would do the day before. He said that he would do. He can't even do that. He's such a wonderful guy. Do you feel it? I actually do like Scott. I was just joking. I like him a lot. He's a family member. I would punch myself in the face if he was any part of my family. I definitely wouldn't be boasting about it. That's for sure. Sorry. I mean, okay. Hey, sometimes there's bad apples, just like Christopher Watts. That case, bad apple. Same here with Scott Peterson. Bad, rotten apple with a bunch of worms in it. Okay, let's get into this. The burglary that happened across the street. This was a lucky thing for Scott, that there was a burglary right across the street. And I love how these things happen. There just happened to be a burglary across the street. Now there's doubt. Oh my God. There was a theft, thievery across the street. They could be connected. And I'm thinking, wow, maybe we got something here. Maybe we're all complete morons. And Scott is the unluckiest man on the face of the planet. Yeah, he's a cheater. Okay. Some guys cheat. They're pieces of shit. Okay, it happens. It does take two to tango. I get it. If a marriage isn't going well and one of the partners strays, okay, it happens. He cheated. Okay. But is he that unlucky that he would be blamed for all of this? And there happened to be this theft across the street. So now I got to look into this. This is actually a big deal. And there's a lot of people, or some people, that's a possibility of what happened to Laci. And Scott's innocent. This poor husband, right? Gets blamed for this. They had nothing to do with it. He was just happened to go boating that day, right? The area where her body would eventually be found. What a coincidence. And, he's just extremely unlucky. So let's look into this theft. From what the cops think and investigated, they believe the burglary happened on the 26th or the 27th. When they found the thieves, because they found them, they were more than happy. And this is the thieves. The thieves were more than happy to accept responsibility for the theft and taking lie detector tests to clear them from having anything to do with Laci. They were freaking out. When the cops were pressing them about Laci, they're like, whoa. We're pieces of shit thieves. We don't kill anybody. I guess these thieves were high as a kite that day. They don't even remember the day that they did this because they were so high. And they're like, And people will be like, wow, they were so high. They don't remember what they were doing. They could have hurt Laci. But we'll get into more on why the burglary and Laci are not connected. The thieves left no evidence of any connection between Laci and the theft. It's literally impossible for the burglars to have been responsible for Laci. Scott left home at 10:08, confirmed by his cell records. Mackenzie the dog, they had a dog. Mackenzie the dog was found at 10:18 And this was confirmed by the neighbor's cell records, store receipts, and physically retracing her steps. The Medinas, the house that was broken into, were home until 10:30, and this was confirmed by their cell records. So the prosecution did an excellent job bringing in experts also in every area to testify in court to prove the defendant's alternate theories that they were false within the case. They even brought in a San Francisco Bay expert, and his sole job and expertise is to study the water, depths, changes, and movements of water within the bay. I guess this expert can pinpoint the location of Laci's body starting within the same area, Brooks Point, that Scott said he went fishing on that day. And then the body's ending up showing up there. And why would the thieves, after taking Laci, poor Laci, why would they weigh her down? Think about it. They would want to frame Scott, put the body in a place where they can find it. There would be no reason for them to weigh the body down. They would want the body to be found if the framing was involved. There wasn't. All the stolen property was restored by the cops and nothing at all linked to Laci. Mr. Scott Peterson, the great husband and would-be father, was gone a lot when Laci got pregnant, saying that he had to work a lot, go to a lot of business meetings, and so on. And Laci must have known, right? Like deep down, that as soon as she got pregnant, she saw less of Scott. And that was the reason why. It's because she was pregnant. You don't want to be around. So let's get into the other side of Scott, the not so good part, the cheater. He had a second life. The pictures of him and Amber just angers me. I mean, he had been gone a lot. He's taking pictures with this other lady, and this other lady had a kid, a daughter, and he's all nice to the daughter. He like read to her, and this whole second life thing where he could be with Laci and his pregnant wife and then go off and cheat on her and be this completely different character. He liked it. He liked the thrill of it, being this different person, kind of like an actor in a way. He was acting like a single guy. Totally, no doubt about it. Scott met Amber through a friend in his company on a business trip. He was actually flirting with the friend. And when the friend said, I was engaged, I am engaged, nothing's going to happen, Scott, he was a big hornball, okay, and a pervert. And yeah, he was. And he ended up asking this lady, well, if you're not going to sleep with me, do you have a friend? And this lady recommended Amber. And Scott told the friend and Amber he was not married. Well, eventually the friend found out that Scott was married, confronted Scott about it, said, you better tell Amber that you're married, because if you don't, I am. So Scott had to make a call here. Break it off or try to keep lying. Well, Scott's going to keep lying because he likes it. He made up a good excuse about, oh, I was married and it was horrible. I'm so sorry I lied to you. Will you give me a blowjob? Because these two, Amber and Scott, they had sex on the first date. They had sex on the second date, and they had sex on the third date, and the fourth date, and the fifth date. Every time they got together, they had sex. For the first 4 or 5 times, it was protected sex, and then it started not being protected sex. I read all the court documents. All this stuff is in the court documents. It's incredible. Everything is in the court documents. The court knew when they started having unprotected sex. It's incredible. And even talked about the fact that, oh, oops, we should start talking about, getting fixed, and all this stuff. And Scott's like, yeah, I'm probably going to get fixed. And Amber's like, you shouldn't do that. Don't do that, because I may want to have kids in the future. He's like, no. This whole second life thing blows me away. But eventually, Amber puts 2 and 2 together. Finds out Scott has been lying the whole time. It's going to bite you in the ass eventually, dude. Think about it. How much longer So you think this was going to go on. He gives her a line. She's not biting. She goes to the police right away. Props to Amber Fry. I give her just the highest respect. She did the right thing over and over again. She knew she was being lied to, and Scott was a piece of garbage. She was completely floored and just disgusted about, just putting everything together and seeing who he really was. She started working with the police, taping all the conversations that she had with Scott. One of the most disgusting parts about this whole thing was that at one of Laci's vigils, candlelit vigil, the whole community's there. All the family and friends, sorry, folks, my phone is telling me it's really low on power. We're going to do the best we can, but there's a candlelit vigil for Laci. Everyone's sad, thinking about Laci. Now, Scott, he's still lying to his mistress. During the vigil, he can't help himself call Amber and lie to her that he's in Paris. That phone call is so disgusting. And he's such a bad liar, too. I don't buy him. But he's that guy. He's disgusting. He's horrible. And he's just that guy. Police, of course, confront Scott about Amber. And he's telling them, that picture you're showing me of me and Amber, it's been doctored. That's not me. You think that's me? He's still trying to wiggle his way out of this. He's simply a manipulator, always the victim, and he's a big baby, a narcissistic baby. Is that how narcissistic babies sound? That's what I think that if he cried, that's what he would sound like. And folks, ever see him get weepy in the interviews he gives, especially the one with Diane Sawyer? That was just cringeworthy. Watching him try to be sad. Diane Sawyer mentions that you never talk about your son. He never does, because he doesn't give a shit about his son. But it's, put out there. She mentions it. You haven't mentioned your son. And then he tries to get all, as an actor, right, all method. He's thinking of something sad. Like, he's thinking about the fact that, my God, I'm not going to be able to have unprotected sex with Amber anymore. He thinks about that. Yeah, he goes, I don't want to talk about that. That's just too deep. No, we don't do that. He's such a piece of shit. So the police are finally searching the bay. The bay, he says, he went fishing. Scott will end up renting several cars to drive up to the marina 90 miles away to check on the situation. He only stays for a few minutes to see what's going on, and then he drives back home. We know this because he was followed by the cops. He doesn't know this. He's being tapped and followed. The police completely are on his tail. He doesn't know this. And he's so guilty. I like in the documentary that the police claim the photos of him and Amber were leaked. Yeah, right. Bullshit. That's I'm calling it A1 bullshit on this one. The cops are lying. It was leaked? No, they put it out on purpose. That's my opinion. I could be wrong. I don't think I am. I think the cops leaked it on purpose. It was a plan. I think they all sat around and put, okay, it's time to release these photos. Let's get a reaction out of this fucker. Okay, we got to mention this cast of characters. Laci Peterson, Scott's sister-in-law. Scott has a brother, who completely stays out of this whole thing for reason. But his wife, boy, she's the biggest cheerleader for Scott you can find. And she's so upset How can you believe that Scott is guilty? It's just not possible. He's a wonderful man. No, he's not. He's a piece of shit. And you are probably a piece of shit too. Or you are completely head over heels in love with your brother-in-law, which also turns my stomach a lot. Janie, really? Give it up. Just stop. I see her and I go, whoa, whoa. Do you? I do. When you see her, you go, you throw up a little bit, and you gotta swallow it, and you're like, fuck. Yeah. They're delusional. Scott's side of the family, or whoever sticks up for him, you're delusional. Sorry, you are. And she's the biggest delusion you can find in this story. Fact is, Scott was cheating on his wife, okay? And Scott's sister, Scott's real sister, says this in doc. I don't call it an affair. It was just a sexual thing. She didn't actually say that. Yeah, she did. Scott's sister, I forgot to put her name down. I don't give a shit, really. She said it wasn't an affair. Yeah, it was. That's an affair. Stop. Just stop. And you're also slapping in the face of Laci's memory of who she was. And that hurts me too. Saying something like that, it was just a sexual thing. Because Laci wasn't giving Scott what he needed, obviously. So he had to go outside the marriage. And, this whole Amber thing, he just needed to bust his nut in some other lady. I mean, it's not like he was cheating on her or nothing. That's not, What? These goes to show you the kind of family, I guess. This guy was... That's completely disgusting. Utterly and completely disgusting. They're disgusting, obviously. Moving on. I note the family is garbage. Check mark. Amber Fry gives her statement. She is obviously distraught. She gets up in front of the press and she talks. You can watch this too. It's emotional. You got to give her a lot of credit because what she did, not easy. Laci's family now does not support Scott after hearing about Amber. So it took that. I mean, they were hanging on, hoping and praying that Scott had nothing to do with Laci's disappearance. And finding out about Amber, that was the last straw. They were hanging on, right? And Laci's mom, Sharon, okay, she actually made a list at one point. She says that in doc, where she had all the things for Scott and then all the things against him. And she said the list against him was really long. And that worried her. That would worry me too, Mom. Also want to note, Scott changed the inside of the house. Okay. It was cluttered. No respect at all for Laci's things. Ended up selling her car. Tried to sell the house. And the nursery for Connor. They were going to have a boy. And they were going to name him Connor. He used the nursery as a storage area. Okay. I'm the biggest cheerleader and advocate for children. I think they're the most precious things on the planet. The most precious gems on the planet. Children. And when children are hurt in any way, I'm very upset. Very sad. And you think about someone like Scott murdering his beautiful, devoted wife and their child. Not even, and the child was alive. Okay? It's living in mom. It's alive. Killed 2 people. 2. And Scott was nothing. That kid, that child, that precious being, meant nothing to Scott. There are people defending him. Look who you're defending, okay? I get it that you want to believe that no one would do this. That's why we're so interested in these stories, because this baffles us. We're like, wow, these are not normal functioning people. Are they evil? That's another question you want to, some people bring up. Are they evil? They kind of are. And you hate to say that. You never want to think that someone's evil. But to do something like that, you got to be a bit evil, right? These are evil deeds being done, savage things. We don't want to believe that people not want to do, but can do. And Scott did. So the cops end up putting a full court press on Scott. They believe they have their man because they found the bodies. Eventually, the bodies wash up in the bay. The same bay that Scott was fishing in on Christmas Eve. Okay, that's a hell of a coincidence. The weights, they did their job for as long as they could. The weights stayed down and the bodies came up. So from what I understand, the limbs stayed, but the main core of the bodies came up, and Connor did too. They found Connor first, and Laci, I think a few days later, not too far away from him, Connor. So Scott at this time is in San Diego visiting family, right? When they found him, he had dyed his hair blonde. In his car was $15,000 for cell phones, several knives, rope, cooler, grill, his brother's ID, and Viagra. Where are you going, Scott? Mexico ain't that far away. Where you going, buddy? Going somewhere? No, I always carry this stuff in my car. This is pretty average, material to have in your car. It's just Sunday drive. Why? What's going on, guys? And they show Laci Peterson, the devoted sister-in-law, the greatest cheerleader for Scott. Says that, he went down to San Diego all the time when Laci was missing. What's the big deal? Oh, gee, I don't know. All the shit in his car? Can you explain that, Janie? I'm sure she could. I'd like to see her try. Has she? Those of you, I couldn't find that information. Is there an interview with Janie explaining why he had that much cash, all that shit, and Viagra? God, I love to hear that explanation. I would sit with my fist up against my chin, eagerly, and just filled with anticipation, waiting to hear that story. And how much bullshit is going to come out of Janie's mouth. They also had a couple of jurors in the dock. These jurors, I got weird vibes from the jurors. Just did. But I want to mention, one of the jurors said this. He said, Scott's cheating had no bearing on the case. And that's an interesting point, though. So I had to chew on that as we wrap it up. The fact that his cheating had nothing to do with the bearing of him being guilty of killing his wife. And I did chew on that for a while. And I'm like, that's a tough one. Because just because you cheat doesn't mean you kill. And they're right. I get it, but it does have meaning of his makeup and what was going on. And it does have a bearing on the case. to say it doesn't, I think is stupid. You should take all the information you have on Scott and the situation and weigh all of it. Don't pick and choose. Be like, oh, he's a cheater, but that doesn't mean anything. So we're just going to ignore that. What? Oh, he cheated at backgammon. We'll keep that one? Yeah, put that over there. Oh, he liked the color blue? Oh, that's great. So do I. That's a point for Scott. No, No, you should take blue, backgammon, cheating, everything. The fact, all the facts. Right? Am I wrong? I think the cheating had a lot to do with what happened eventually. So yeah, it had a lot to do with it. I don't know. Maybe I'm talking out of my ass. And I do that sometimes in the actor's room. So we're going to sum up real quick. Going to wrap this up. The whole Laci Peterson disappearance and murder. She was murdered. And it wasn't by the burglars. No, it was not. It wasn't. It was Scott. And I think I pointed out a lot of things in my show. And I know that there were a few other docs about this case. There was an A&E doc that was all Scott. It was a disgusting doc. Even my brother believed for a brief moment that Scott could be innocent. I was like, Dave, no, not you. Not my flesh and blood. What are you talking about, man? I had to bring him back down to reality, because I talked to him last week about it. He goes, oh, no, yeah. But it's all circumstantial. Like, he's still on the fence a little bit. I'm like, Dave, you've been watching the wrong docs, man. Do your own research. And that's what I say on all the shows I do on docs. Okay? Do your own research. Watch the doc. Take it in. Get some information from that doc. Then watch another one. Watch another one. Look at the case documents if they're available. And the case documents for this are available. You can read everything. I did. It was fascinating. A lot of information. They didn't mention the docs. You can find online. It's great. It just is. And you find out all the information you can, and it further cements how guilty he really was. Because he was convicted. All those jurors sat there. The ones that even said the cheating had nothing to do with it still convicted Scott. And they convicted him to death. That was reversed. He's on a life sentence now, which is fine. Whatever. The death penalty, I don't like it. I used to be all for it. I was all for it. Now, I think it's better off they fucking live in prison and die in prison. Fucking piece of shit. I hope you are eating stale pizza every day, piece of shit garbage food, and they put you in this little room, right? Don't talk to anybody. You think about what you did. Fucking piece of shit for the rest of your life. Instead of getting the easy way out, and the way they die too. They just they put a shot in them, and within 5-10 minutes they just fall asleep. Shit. That sounds wonderful. If I'm going to go, I'm going to be like 80, 85. Give me a shot. I don't want to suffer. Motherfucker should suffer just like everyone else when they die. Because most of us will. I don't want to. I'm hoping and praying when that day comes, hopefully 40 years from now, I'll peacefully just go to sleep, right? Just have this really great dream. Like it's a good day. You have a great fucking day. And you're really tired, you're spent, you want to lay down, and you lay down, and you fall asleep blissfully, and you just drift away, right? That's the way to go. Or maybe, while you're having sex. They say that'd be great too, like as you reach orgasm, and you just, and that's it. I'm talking about death here on the show. Horrible stuff. But anyways. Thank you for listening. And please, in the comment section, if you're an advocate of Scott Peterson, please explain yourself. I would love to hear it. Hey, Am I missing something? Did I give wrong information? I think I was pretty good with my information. I'm not perfect. I might have missed something. I might have stated something wrong. Don't take what I say to heart. Don't do it. I'm an entertainment-based show. This is entertainment. That's it. So in the comment section, if you want, please be like, you missed this. You got that wrong, man. Point it out to me. That's good. And then you tell me why Scott is innocent. I'll listen. I'll probably not believe you, but if you make a great point in something, I got to realize that and take that in. Be like, okay. I doubt that's going to happen. I believe 100%, he's guilty. For sure. So, I'm going to go downstairs now. It is a Saturday night, late July 2025. And I'm going to go down. I'm going to play a game with my family. We're doing fine. We're doing great. We are doing wonderful. I have 2 beautiful daughters and the greatest wife you can ever imagine. Okay, and we enjoy each other's company. We like playing games at night on the weekend, and we're doing that. We're going to play Mario World? I always get this mixed up. I don't know. It's a game we play, and we, for an hour or two. We just enjoy each other's company, goof around. Sometimes we get a little pissed. There's competitive nature going on. It's awesome. It's great. I accept it. I'm not that guy. I'm not that competitive in that way. I'm not. When I would play with my family, when I was a kid, we would play games. My dad was very competitive. And so was my mom. And they would sort of fight. And my brother and I'd be like, oh, man. Because my dad would always want to win. My mom would want to win. I'm not like, I want my kids to win. I want my wife to win. I don't give a shit if I win. I don't care. I really don't care. But I just want to have fun. That's the whole point. Having fun. For other people, winning is fun. Losing is not. I'm like that with my Cleveland Browns. Okay. They have to win every time. Every time. And when they don't, I'm severely upset. It'll ruin my week. At least my night. So I'm going to do that tonight. I hope that you're enjoying your family or not. Maybe you're single. Actors listen to this show. I'm sure there's some single actors out there. Maybe you have a date later on. Huh? Maybe you got an audition. Good luck. Kick ass. And just remember, if you're going on that audition, don't try to get the part. Don't go in like that. I know, I'm giving acting advice now. Go in and do the best you can. Show them something. You got to show the best part of you in that interview. You're selling yourself. You're the product. Okay, if you're not right for that role, okay, and you give a great audition, they're going to remember you. So if you have an audition, do it. Just go in there like, hey, if I don't get this, so what? That's when you get it. So, right, you got to have that attitude. Because every audition I went on, it was do or die. Like, I got to fucking get this. This is it. Yeah. And I tried too hard. And I think I gave like 2 good auditions in New York City, like 2. And it was the 2 times where I was just so free and I just was like, well, I'm just having fun. And I got callbacks and then I got too serious and that was it. So just have fun. That's my whole point as I end this show. It was a emotional show, a documentary, and it was about murder. I get it. So I'm trying to lighten it up. Hopefully have fun with your family tonight. Thank you once again for listening to my show. Always remember to watch that movie. One that makes you sad. One that makes you happy. Just one that makes you feel. Because that's what it's all about. Art. Making it a part of your life. And thank you for sharing this time with me. I love doing the show. I hope all is well. May God bless. Have a good one.